astral projection, an out-of-body experience. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christina Clark and welcome to a Wednesday video, which is usually dedicated to college or lifestyle content. And then on Sundays I have my dream journal series where I am talking about dreams, some of the topics, but mostly sharing my story times of spiritually significant dreams. This video is not going up on Sunday because this is not related to dreams in any way, shape, or form. That's right. Today I'm sharing with you guys my first astral projection experience story time. If you've never heard the term before, astral projection is essentially an out-of-body experience. Usually it's termed an intentional out-of-body experience. Most of the time when people astral project, it is intentional, but sometimes it can be unintentional. But overall, it's just an out-of-body experience. It's very different than lucid dreaming. I have had a ton of lucid dreams in my past and still to this day. The main difference from astral projection and lucid dreaming is you become aware and conscious in the dream, like after you've already been in sleep state and you're like, oh, I'm dreaming. Astral projection, you don't even get to the dream state. Astral projection is when you are fully conscious and aware and you are outside of your body, and that sounds crazy. I get it, it kind of does. A lot of people believe that when we go to sleep, we have a physical body and also an astral body, and so when we go to sleep, we're like astral projecting all the time, but we're just not aware of it. So that's where it comes in. When you astral project, it's like your astral body, or like, you know, the soul, spirit, whatever that makes you you, leaves your body while you're still alive. Your physical body sleeping, but your consciousness and your astral body, she's up and having the time of her life. Hopefully having the time of her life. So what was my experience like the first time I was astral projecting? It was pretty freaking cool. I had heard of what astral projection was, and I heard about it back in middle school. I'm a senior in college right now. And I also learned about lucid dreaming and I thought it was cool, so I wanted to try it. I worked so hard back in the day, but it never worked. It never worked for me and for the years to come, except one day in December of 2021. It happened. I was a little shocked and I couldn't believe this was actually real. What had happened was I was asleep in my bed. I had a different layout, so my bed was technically right past the camera to the left, and I get a phone call. So I answer the phone and my mom needs me to do something real quick to run downstairs, so I did it. Took 5 minutes, came back upstairs, and I had every intention to knocking back out. I was tired. I was half asleep. I'm back in bed, laying down. I'm trying to think of, ooh, what would be a cool, fun, cute scenario to like help me go back to sleep. Then out of nowhere, the thought comes to me like,
hey, why don't you try to astral project?
Every now and then, like from the past few years, whenever I would wake up and kind of be in that half sleep state moment, I would think, maybe I'll try it. Like, I'm not gonna actively train for it, but I'm in the right condition, so let's see if this whole thing is real. That's what I started doing. I stayed very still. I was kind of just thinking lovely thoughts. I had meditated the day before. I always kept my mind busy so that way I wouldn't fall back into this sleep state, because for astral projection, your body, your physical body has to be asleep, but your mind is awake. My breathing fell into that rhythm that you get when you're asleep. You know how you just innately breathe, but it slows down a little bit and it gets into this rhythm. I started to think of every time I inhaled, I was breathing in light and love, and then when I would exhale, it was anything opposite of that would kind of come out. It was like a mental thing. Basically, I wanted to be in a good headspace, because if this for some reason did work, your girl's house is a little haunted, and we'll get to that. Some of the things that have made themselves known and that have come into my lucid dreams and wouldn't really leave, that were not of the light. I'm trying to be like as positive as I can. They were not positive and they were very dark and malicious, and so that's always kind of been in the back of my head just as a precaution. So when I'm setting this intention, I'm not giving anything the opportunity or foothold that's negative to come through. I don't want to see that. I don't want to experience it.
I've had enough.
So I was doing a lot of thinking in my head, and that's when I was like, okay, this is taking too long. This is a lot of effort. Like, nothing's happening. And when I thought that, I realized I feel different right now. It kind of feels like my body's floating up to the ceiling, and I thought that was a little weird. So I'm like, it feels like I'm going up. I wonder what would happen if I just think about me floating down. And as soon as I thought of that, that's when I felt the difference. I want to say it felt physical, but it wasn't happening to my body. It was like little spirit me, Christina. She was coming up. When I thought about what would it be like to go down, that's when I felt it, me, sink down. I want to say when I floated up, I probably got to the top of my ceiling, and when I started to float down, I was flowing down like into my bed and like at the floor, going down another level. At this point, I couldn't see anything. It was very black, as if like if you were to close your eyes right now, and if it's a little bit darker, it would look black. And that's kind of what it looked like to me. Because I couldn't see anything and I felt me starting to like lower, I was like, no ma'am, don't think about that. We're not going downstairs, if you know what I mean. So I start to like float and rise back up, and it's at this point that I do put together, hey, I can't see anything. Like, I know where I am and I know I'm like by my body, but I can't like see anything. Although I was in the sea of darkness, there was this tiny little light, and it slowly started to get bigger. And as it got bigger, I realized, oh, this is my living room. I know this place. And it baffles me because like, I know I'm not asleep yet. I know I haven't entered my dream state, but I'm seeing something in my mind, almost like I am looking at it and like I'm there. It was completely pitch black, and then you had this little circle of light and of a place, and I knew what it was. And as I started to realize, okay, this is my living room, everything got cleaner and more crisp. But the outer part of the circle, like the edge, the boundary, I don't know if this is the right word, chromatic. I'll put an example in here to hopefully describe what I mean, because at this point, I don't really know. It was like the outer part of this circle was the outer part of Raven's visions, and that's so Raven. And the more that I focused on this place and the more like the details became refined, I ended up just being there, and poof, I was in the middle of my living room slash kitchen slash dining room. It's an open floor plan. I see everything. I see that it's light outside. Everything is just the way that I left it. And it takes me a second because I'm like, no way, this actually freaking worked. And I got so excited. I remember I was just like doing little dances. It was in my head, but I don't know, I was kind of like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And it wasn't like I was standing, it was like I was hovering, and I just didn't feel anchored down. I was just like floating in one place. I'm fully conscious, I'm fully aware of what's going on. I was like singing to myself a couple lines of some of my favorite worship songs. So I would be like, Jesus, Jesus, you make the darkness tremble. Yeah, I can't sing. I will never claim that. Why I was singing these lyrics was because there were moments when I did become a little fearful, but as soon as I felt like, oh my gosh, what if something negative comes through, I immediately said, nope, we're not thinking about it. We're not like making this a reality. No, absolutely not. So I would also sing these lines just to keep my headspace in a good place and not think about the negative experience that could potentially happen. Again, there was some paranormal activity happening in my house at the time, and it still does happen, and a majority of times it's not very pleasant, and it is more dark, and we don't need to get into it. So naturally I'm thinking, oh crap, like I don't want to run into face to face with something that is legitimately here. I remember at one point I was so excited that not only did it work, but I was so happy and I hadn't run into anything threatening that I remember I just felt so free, and I just like threw up my hands and like fell back, but I wasn't falling. I was like falling and slowly rotating, like if you ever done like a backflip but without the tuck, it's just like your girl was rotating like a rotisserie chicken. It was like me falling, but if I was like the hands on a clock, you know how they just move and they come back around? It's like that, but faster. It felt so good, but when I leaned back and just had that moment, my scenery changed. Like, I was in darkness, but there were so many stars. It felt so peaceful. It felt so right. It looked like a starry night. Like, it looked like I was kind of like in the universe doing whatever, having a moment, being so excited. Once I did that backflip rotation and I like came back to a resting position where I was facing where I started, still standing in the same place. And I thought, oh my gosh. At this point, of course, I'm like over the moon, and I start singing other lyrics to a different song. I only knew like 3 or 4 off the top of my head, but when I was like thinking and singing along to them internally, I started to hear like the actual music of the song playing faintly. It's almost like if you had headphones in and you heard the song playing. It was like that, but very, very faint. I was just kind of looking around and I was just jamming to myself, and then I think, you know what? I want to go down to the basement, which was right under where I was standing in terms of where I was standing in this position in my downstairs area, and I just went through the floor. I don't know. I'm like sinking down. I'm in the basement, and the basement is a little bit darker, but that makes sense because it is the basement. I looked around. I was never able to look directly behind me, but I also never felt threatened. I didn't feel like I was in danger. I didn't feel like I was unsafe. And usually when I do, I pick up on these things very quickly, especially in my dreams. Whenever this happens, usually it's because something negative comes through. And immediately I start lucid dreaming, and then I handle the situation. So I'm very like in tune to that, and I'm very sensitive to those kinds of changes. It's more like I just didn't really feel the need to fully turn around and look, but I looked from side to side, and it's like it looked clean. I didn't see anyone or anything there that wasn't supposed to be there. I didn't see anything in this basement, and I carry on, and I'm like thinking of my worship songs because I'm just so stoked. I think it's important to note that like I wasn't consuming any alcohol. I didn't take any like drugs or like over the counters, like none of that. I was completely sober. Love that. Where I was in this basement was literally the exact same position of where I was upstairs, just down an elevation. I was still floating, and this time I was kind of closer to the ceiling. And at this point I realized, you know what? I don't really think I want to be in the basement. It's just like, I didn't see anything bad in there, but what you see in movies. The basement, not the best place. And also because there are certain areas in my house that, like me being fully awake, like me right here, right now, that there's certain places in my house that I don't get a good vibe from, like spiritually. And it's interesting because one of those places is in my basement, and it was exactly the spot that was behind me. And remember, I didn't completely turn around and look at what was going on, but I was able to see everything else. And so, you know, I go back up. But what was a little unusual was when I floated back up to that spot from the basement. There wasn't really much daylight happening here anymore. It was like the sun was going down, and I was like, what the heck? Girl, I know that it is light outside right now, and it was also just light out before I went to the basement. We have a side table next to a chair in our living room, and there were 2 plants on it. One of them looked like a basil plant, and like there was another type of plant as well. I don't really know what kind of plant it was, and they didn't have pots for them. I remember when I looked at them, I was like, where the heck did these come from? We don't own these. And also, where are the freaking pots? Who has a plant without a pot just chilling on a side table? I think that's weird. And so I proceed to walk forward, and by walking forward, I'm now in my kitchen area. And out of nowhere, it's like I hear in my mind's head, oh, your dad just took the pots off the plants. And when I heard that, I was like, does this voice think I'm dumb? It sounds very suspect. and it is, but the feeling that I got from this voice, it wasn't negative. It didn't feel like on like that evil side of spiritual warfare, but it just felt like someone trying to tell me like a little white lie or something to kind of help me ease up in this atmosphere and not get into too much of a concerned, scared mindset. So when I heard this, I was like, okay, it's either me trying to just tell myself something ridiculous, but honestly I knew it didn't come from me, and it just felt like your friend that would tell you a little white lie and you're like, yeah, no. I did not see any negative entities. I did not see any positive entity, but like I mentioned, things were starting to seem a little off. I also noticed we have this ottoman, like kind of like where you put your feet up to relax after a long day, and this ottoman was not in the spot that it was supposed to be at, but instead it was by the stairs, and it was like slanted. It didn't even have the blanket on it that we usually keep on it. It was getting a little concerning. I don't know how it moved. I don't know why it looked like the way it was like placed there was like a little shaken, you know, a little sketchy. Maybe that's my cue to go upstairs, do a little bit more exploring. And so I'm at the bottom of the steps and I'm looking up and I'm like, oh, I really don't want to walk upstairs. And then I thought, wait, I don't have to, because I'm like astral projecting. I should be able to float up the stairs. And I did. I floated up the stairs. That was probably the coolest part of the experience, because I was like, I'm gonna float up these stairs, and I did. And as soon as I got to the top part of the stairs, I stopped and I was able to see my bedroom. And with my bedroom, the door was cracked open a little bit, which was how I left it. I was really like, I just don't want to go back into my body, because I finally had this experience and this is so cool. It hasn't been really negative or anything along those lines at all. I want to keep going. But once I started kind of resisting those thoughts, that's when I ended up back in my body and I opened my eyes. First of all, there was a part of me that was like, bruh, I wasn't ready. I wasn't done yet. And another part of me that was like, that was so cool, because I can clearly and vividly remember what just happened. And then I wrote it all down on my phone. I don't know if, you know, when it started to go dark and something started to be out of place, I don't know if that was like a warning. Do you know what I mean? Like things are starting to get iffy. Maybe it's time we get back to life as usual. It felt like the whole experience was very facilitated. It was like I was being guided. It's one of those things that you'll never forget, because it feels so real and you're like fully awake, you're fully present. It's not like you're in a dream and like what you're seeing and thinking isn't coherent, or when you try and recall it, it's a little bit spacey. No, like it feels like I was physically there and I was physically making my own decisions, and I don't know, it was so cool. Definitely a highlight of that year. If you like this video, make sure to give it a big ol' thumbs up and subscribe. On my channel, I post college and lifestyle content on Wednesdays, and on Sundays, I am making episodes for my Dream Journal series. So subscribe if you want. If not, that's cool too. Thank you for watching. And I will see you in my next video.